Hello and welcome to this video series. My name is Thomas Langer. I'm the product manager for IO-Link here at Baumer. And in this video series, I'm going to guide you step by step through the process of integrating an IO-Link sensor from Baumer through our new IO-Link Master CM50I into the whole Siemens environment using an S7-1200 PLC. And in order to do this, we connect this master right at the PLC. And then we have a network cable from the PLC to our USB network cable. And with that, we have everything we need to start our next steps. All right, now that we connected everything, let's jump right into TIA Portal. In our case, we use TIA Portal 15.1. This should work with any version higher than that as well. And in here, we just create a new project, take whatever name TIA decides for us. And in the next screen, we just open the project view. And as you know, with each project, we start adding our PLC. In our case, that's an S7-1200. In your case, this might be a completely different version. So just add the PLC that is fitting for your system. And in the next step, we want to add our IO-Link Master to the network view. In order to do that, we have to add a so-called device description file. As you know, a GSDML file for TIA Portal. So how do you find that for our IO-Link Master? The easiest way to do that is you just open a browser, visit baumer.com, and in here, in the search bar, you just type the material number of the product you're looking for. In our case of the IO-Link Masters, you find the product number on top of the device. So we type this number right here. And you can see the search will already bring up the product page for us. So a click on this link brings us to the product page. And on here, if you scroll down, we have different sections. And one of the sections is called software. So a shortcut on software brings us right down here. And here you can download the zip file. So I click on the zip, just downloads it for us. And that's all we need to do to find the right device description file for our IO-Link Master. So we close the browser and find a downloaded zip file in our download folder. Now TIA cannot open zip files, so we have to unzip it. And the easiest way to do that is double click on that zip. Windows will open it for us. And we drag and drop the contents out of this file. That's all we need to do. So we close the Explorer window again. And now we have an unzipped GSDML file that TIA is able to import. So we can go right back into TIA, and up here in the menu, we choose Options and Manage General Station Description Files, GSD. And in this window here, we just select the right path. In our case, that's the desktop. And we have a folder here, GSDML, and in that, the first subfolder is GSDML. Hit OK, and it shows the available files it found in that folder. So we check this file, hit Install, and this will install the GSDML file for us. Now that the installation was successful, we just hit Close. This will now update the hardware catalog. And by that, we have installed our IO-Link Master in TIA Portal. So we go back to device configuration, click on Network View, and now on the right side, we have Hardware Catalog, where we can find our IO-Link Master under Other Field Devices, Profinet IO, IO, Baumer, and down here we have the IO-Link Master and drag it into the hardware view. Now we click on Not Assigned, and this will allow us to assign this master to the PLC that we just added. And by that, we just added our IO-Link Master here in TR Portal. In the next step, we need to assign a name to this device in the Profinet network and also give it an IP address. And the easiest way we do that is double-click on this master here, then click on CM50 down here in the device overview, and then select Properties on the lowest window. And this brings us right into the general Ethernet addresses settings. Now, the first thing that it greets us with is the IP address. And in our example, we choose 192.168.200. In your example, this might be something completely different, depending on the needs of your machine. And as you probably know, in Profinet networks, the Profinet device name is the actual identifier for the PLC to assign IP addresses. So the naming is pretty important. Since we only have one master here, we just set the name to whatever TR decides for us, and we are done in this window. Now there's one more step we need to do. Our IO-Link Master needs one submodule to work, one Pro Options submodule. And if we don't add that, we will see an error message. So to avoid this, on the right side, we go into Hardware Catalog, then Submodules, and here we have CM50 options. And these options can vary from IT protocols to diagnostics to general options like a web server. And this is the option I choose for this example. Again, one of these options need to be activated and added to our hardware. So we just double click on web server, and this will add the web server for us down here. And that's all we need to do to actually finalize the hardware options for this device. Then we go back into network view, and before we load everything into the PLC, we need to do one more thing. We now created this hardware with the options, but we need to assign this one to a device in the network. So currently in the network, we just have an IO-Link Master without any idea what it is, and the PLC has no idea where this is going to. So we have to link the two. And to do this, a very quick way is to just right-click on the device and then choose Assign Device Name. And this will bring us the search window where we can update the list. So the PLC will look in the network for any Profinet device. And we find one here, that's our IO-Link Master, currently without any set IP address or device name. And we just pick this one and click Assign Name. And this links our IO-Link Master in TR Portal to the real existing device in the network. And once we close, our hardware configuration is done. So we can now select Compile up here and then download our hardware configuration into the device, which will be the PLC we just added. So again, we start search, find our PLC, click on load, and load our hardware configuration into the PLC we just added. And once we click finish and click on go online, the moment of truth is here. Did we do everything correctly? All the lights are green, all the checks are green. And that means our hardware configuration with the PLC we selected and the Baumer IO-Link Master is ready to use. Now that we completed the basic hardware configuration for this master, I would like to show you a few more options you have to make your machine more safe, secure, and also give you much more powerful options that you might be used to with other masters. So let's go right into it. And in order to change any hardware settings, the first thing is we have to go offline again. So we do that right now. And then we double click on the master, and this brings up the hardware options menu. And in this list that you will find under device overview, there is one node that's super interesting for you, and that's CR data module parameters. And I click on that, and I click on properties. gives you a list of all the options you have. So this is the place where you find these options. And in here you will find a few very interesting ones. So let's go through them one by one and give you a little overview. Zero mode basically gives you an option to address the ins and outs that the master can have on pin 2 and pin 4, either port-based or pin-based. So you can change the addressing here. And under general diagnostic reports, you find some options of diagnosis that the master will send to the PLC. The same goes for IO-Link diagnosis, and you can set these options per port. Like, for example, only report wire breaks or report all diagnostics. A very interesting option is also deactivate pin 1. That means deactivate the sensor current. And that will essentially turn your device off. Because as we know on pin 1, that is the power that drives the IO-Link device. And even on actuators, this is the power that drives the IO-Link controller. So by that, you can turn off this port completely. Or you can, for example, use it only for I/O on pin 2 and 4, but make sure that pin 1 has no power left. Essentially, you can also use that to restart devices on that port. Zero channel functions. Pin 2 sets the function of pin 2 for each port. And this is a very interesting one because pin 2 on this master is really powerful. Per default, it's set to automatic DIO. So if it detects any current, it will give you a digital input, but you can also switch it on as a digital output. You can also set it to discretely be digital in or digital out. But over here, you can also set it to aux power. And what that means is if you have an actuator and if you power the master with actuator current as well, this is the option where you turn on actuator power, and that way your valve island or your motor actually will get the current it needs to run. We set this back to automatic DIO for now, and that is the default setting. Now for pin 2, you can also set an input filter. So if you have a noisy input signal, this filter will also make sure to get a discrete input. And for pin 1, 2, and 4, you can set a current limit per port, which basically means if you know that there's only a sensor running on this port and it draws less than 0.5 amps, you can essentially set a fuse to 0.5 amps on this port, ensuring that if there is a fault in the device or in the cable and something draws more current, the limiter will basically shut this port off immediately. And that way you can make your machine more safe to use. So you can set this here. Now there's also a diagnostics event function here, where basically IO-Link diagnostics will be integrated into Profinet, and there's different ways of reporting this. This is down here. And if pin 2 has an overload current, you can restart it here manually. So if this pin shuts off, this gives you the option to restart it. And that basically is the rundown through the options menu you have on this IO-Link Master. There's one more thing I want to go through here, and this is the submodules and the CM50 Pro options that we've shown before. As you know, we already added a web server in order to make the basic hardware configuration complete. But let's say you want to add an IT protocol as well, for example OPC UA. We just double click on that and you can see it's added here in the list. And it's a good idea that when you add a submodule, then you click on it and check module parameters. Because as we can see, we added OPC UA here, but by default it's completely disabled. And we have to enable it first in order to work. As you can see, we can even change the port number here. And we have two options for writing acyclic data to IO-Link or cyclic data to IO-Link. So if we only check this option, enable OPC UA, but leave the other two unchecked, OPC UA will be in read-only mode. Or for example, if we want to write cyclic data, like letting the device blink, we can activate that. Or if you want OPC UA to actually change options on a device, change parameters, then we can also allow acyclic data to work. So to rewind, whenever you add a submodule from this list, make sure to check its options and check if it's actually activated and set in the way you intend. And that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you learned something about the basic hardware integration of our IO-Link Master, and see you in the next one.